Good afternoon. Can everyone take their seats, please? We'll get started in just a few minutes. All rise for the special session of the Supreme Court of Georgia. You may be seated.
Well, good morning, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First thing I want to say to you on this very special occasion is let's go Hawks. This is investiture season in the state of Georgia. We recently had the coronation of our Chief Judge and Vice Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, and we're so pleased and thankful to be able to celebrate the new Chief Justice and Presiding Justice of the Georgia Supreme Court. We are pleased that Presiding Justice Namias and Justice Boggs are able and willing to take this very significant step on behalf of our entire judiciary. Before we get started into the program, there are several people who I want to identify and recognize, and I'm going to take my time here because I think this is very important. We do have Presiding Justice Namias, of course. He is here with Linda Willis, and he's also joined by his sons, Stephen and Michael. We, of course, have Presiding Justice Michael Boggs and his wife, Heather. Justice Nels Peterson is your wife? Yeah, I see Jen. There's Jen. Justice Sarah Warren and Blaze are here. Justice Charlie Bethel and his wife Lindsay. Justice John Ellington is here. Justice Carla McMillan, Justice Shawn LaGrua and her husband Chris Breland are here, and she's joined by her mother. It's good to see you. And of course my wife Kimberly is here as well. We have on the Court of Appeals, Chief Judge Brian Rickman is not here, but I want to say his name because he is, in fact, as of today, Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals. Vice Chief Mandy Mercier, and of course, as of today, former Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Christopher McFadden, Judge Yvette Miller, Judge Sarah Doyle, Judge Stephen Dillard, Judge Clyde Reese, Judge Trent Brown, Judge Elizabeth Gobeil, Judge Ken Hodges, Judge Todd Markle, Judge Trey Pipkin, Judge Verda Colvin, and Judge Herb Phipps. I'm very pleased to say that we have two former governors here. I see my good friend, Governor Sonny Perdue, and of course our good friend to us all, Governor Deal and Ms. Sandra Deal. Thank y'all both for being here. Thank you, Governors. Former justices are in our midst. I see former Chief Justice Norman Fletcher, former Chief Justice Leah Ward Sears, former Chief Justice Carol Hunstein. Is she here? I know she was expecting to be here. I see former Chief Justice Hugh Thompson, his wife Jane, former Justice Britt Grant, now Judge Britt Grant, which is very complicated. Former Chief Justice Robert Benham and his wife, Miss Nell, and we have former Justice Keith Blackwell, our most recent former justice, and his wife Angela is here. We do have some federales here. Chief Judge Timothy Batten of the Northern District, and again, Judge Britt Grant, again, very complicated. All the way from Washington, D.C., we have our FBI Director, Mr. Christopher Wray. Thank you for being here, sir. We really appreciate your presence, and I see Miss Sally Quillian. Good to see you here as well. Thank you. Statewide Business Court, we have Judge Walt Davis. All the way from across the street, from the executive branch, we have our Attorney General, Mr. Chris Carr, and our Solicitor General, Mr. Andrew Pinson. We've got smart people in the room from the law schools. The Dean of Emory Law School, Miss Mary Ann Babinski, and Dean from the University of Georgia School of Law, Mr. Bo Rutledge, and our new Dean to the Georgia State Law School, Miss LaVonda Reed. Is this your first day on the job? Well, welcome. Thank you. At this time, I'm pleased to bring to you the Right Reverend Bishop Robert C. Wright of the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta. He will be leading us in our invocation. That will be followed by the sons of our presiding justice, David Namias, Stephen and Michael, who will lead us in a pledge of allegiance. Bishop Wright.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rob Wright. I'm the Bishop of the Episcopal Diocese of Atlanta, and I've been given the privilege of offering the invocation. But before the prayer, a bit of Holy Scripture. That's what you get when you ask a preacher to do the invocation. Today we stand at a new beginning, that's obvious. So my mind runs to Isaiah's 6th chapter. There we read that in the year that King Uzziah died, Isaiah sees the Lord high and lifted up. He sees members of the heavenly host cry out in praise as he acknowledges the uniqueness of the living God. Holiness is God's unique feature. In that moment, Isaiah recognizes two things: his limitations and the limitations of those with whom he lives and works. And that is, as they say, where the magic begins. He is not undone by the immensity or the imperfection of it all. In that moment, God's two-part question intervenes in Isaiah's two-part recognition. Whom shall I send and who will go for us? God asks. To that extraordinary question, Isaiah says, "Here I am, send me." That answer is in this room. Here I am, send me. There are more than a few similarities in that moment long ago and the moment we have been given to share here today. A question asked, a question answered, a new beginning. Strength and sensitivity required to be effective. Listening at great depth and clarity of response necessary to be difference-making. Like Isaiah then, now comes Michael and David, our friends and our colleagues. Let us pray. Almighty God, who sits on the throne judging rightly, we beseech you to bless the courts of justice in our nation, and especially in the state of Georgia. Give those that preside the spirit of wisdom and understanding, that they discern the truth and impartially administer the law in the fear and reverence of you alone. Grant us grace that we may honor you with our whole selves, remembering the account which we must one day give. May we be faithful stewards of your bounty. And finally, by your mercy, uphold David and Michael, your sons and servants, as they embark on this new beginning. Grant them wisdom, grant them courage for the facing of this day. In the name of God, genius author, Redeemer, and constant companion, we make our prayer. And all God's people said, Amen.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Stephen and Michael, and thank you, Bishop Wright. It is my privilege at this time to call on Justice Michael P. Boggs to come, and I'm going to have him come in just a second. He has asked me to say brief words, and I will. In saying brief words, I want to be clear, they do not begin to capture the full scope and magnitude of who this man is as an individual or as a public servant. I will say two things about him. I will not talk about his bio. You can read that on Wikipedia. But what you might not know are his dedication and service to the state and who he is as a friend. Governor Perdue was involved in starting off this ball of criminal justice reform. Governor Deal accelerated it. I think Governor Deal would not hesitate in affirming what I'm about to say, and that is, I don't believe there is any single person more significant to that reform initiative than Justice Michael Boggs. And you can go through a number of statistics about how important and how significant that work has been. But when you talk about 25% reductions in African American incarceration rates, when you talk about total populations in prison going down to 1980 levels, even though our state has all but doubled in that time period, you begin to get the significance of what has actually happened in this state. And he's been involved in every single bit of it and continues to be involved nationwide in those issues and whatever the next logical step in that is. So that's just a snapshot of what he has delivered as a public servant to this state. Add to that, he's a friend. And when you have a friend in Michael Boggs, you have a friend who will do anything for you. He will go anywhere for you. And those who know him are nodding your heads because we know it to be true. He will travel anywhere in the state. He will travel anywhere in the country in aid of a friend. He will help the friends of his friends just because you've asked him to. Just a snapshot of who he is. He's here with his lovely wife. She is a public servant. She's a teacher's teacher. She's the teacher of teachers who go above and beyond what it takes to educate children and shape their lives and help their lives so that they can become men and women of value in their community and in their homes. Justice Boggs, will you come, please? Where's Heather? Come on up. There you go. Justice Boggs, if you're ready to take the oath, I ask you to raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Michael P. Boggs,
I, Michael P. Boggs,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will well and truly
that I will well and truly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as presiding justice
as presiding justice
of the Supreme Court of Georgia,
of the Supreme Court of Georgia,
to the best of my abilities,
to the best of my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. It's now an honor of mine to present two dear friends to you, and I do mean dear friends. Elizabeth Fite is the current president. Where's Elizabeth? Oh, there you go. Very convenient. Is today your first day as president? So today's the first day of president of the State Bar of Georgia. She's a partner of the law firm of Rogers and Fite, a graduate of the Emory School of Law, and she is joined by Justice Blackwell, former Justice Blackwell. They're going to tag team. He's a University of Georgia double grad, and they're going to tag team and tell you a little about the man y'all already know, but we're going to learn a little bit more about Presiding Justice David Namias. Ms. Fight.
Thank you, sir. Distinguished guests, colleagues, family, and friends, I offer you greetings on behalf of the State Bar of Georgia. And today we celebrate the start of a new era at the Supreme Court. The lawyers of the state of Georgia congratulate Presiding Justice Michael Boggs, and in just a matter of moments, the soon-to-be Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Georgia, David Namias. The State Bar highly values its relationship with the court and has enjoyed a healthy and strong relationship with it for years. I know that under Chief Justice Namias' leadership, we will continue to do so, and I personally look forward to working with him and the court's liaisons to the bar, Justices Peterson and Warren. And if you'll indulge me, I wanted to share a personal anecdote. You see, my very first investiture that I attended as a member of the State Bar's leadership was for a junior justice, David Namias. And while true that we were all much younger then, none more so than his boys. And first, I can say that they were as well behaved, at least publicly, than any parent could hope for in a very important moment in their professional life. And that is no doubt a testament to their upbringing. And second, they were barely tall enough to be seen over the railing, which we now know is also patently untrue. So as a result, today, I am particularly honored to be standing before you today to congratulate Chief Justice Namias on his achievement and share with you that I am filled with hope and excitement about the future of our judiciary and our State Bar. Over the years, I've gotten to know our soon-to-be chief, and he is unquestionably a friend to Georgia lawyers and to Georgia's public. While as anyone who has argued before him can attest, he does not shy away from asking the hard questions. But in an honest moment of reflection, we can all admit those are needed, and we need to have those questions put to us. And he understands that our bar is made of a diverse array of lawyers with potentially diverging interests. And I know that he and the court work tirelessly to balance those competing interests to ensure the success of our judiciary. He is also passionate about ensuring that our state citizens have access to the legal resources they need. And balancing the needs of the justice system, the public, and the state's lawyers is no easy task, but I am confident that our new Chief Justice will be able to do so. And on a personal level, I have observed Chief Justice Namias take a keen interest in the pursuits that lawyers have, I'll just say, outside of the courtroom. Through his work in the Atlanta Bar's Bard Show or his love of Duke basketball and football, he understands that a healthy lawyer has pursuits beyond that of the courtroom or a particular client matter. And as this past year has taught us, a healthy lawyer makes a better lawyer. So these traits and my observations fill me with optimism about our future for the State Bar and for our judiciary as we emerge from this pandemic. I know that he was integrally involved in leading our state's judiciary during the pandemic, and his experience will serve him and our state as we navigate these uncharted territory. Mr. Chief Justice, the state's lawyers, all 52,000 of them, congratulate you on this milestone and wish you the utmost success during your tenure. May you continue to have courage and integrity as you administer the law and justice in the state. May you always promote civic and professional responsibility, and may you always retain your ability to insert a pithy comment at just the right time. I look forward to continuing to foster the relationship between the court and Georgia's lawyers. Georgia will be better for it. God bless and protect you, the court, and the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It has been said that when Justice Byron White would welcome newly appointed justices to the Supreme Court of the United States, that he would often share with them an observation along these lines. During your early years on this court, from time to time, you will wonder, what am I doing here? And then in time, those self-doubts will subside, And for the rest of your judicial service, you will look at your 8 colleagues and wonder, what are they doing here? Well, for those who have served on an appellate court, I think there's some element of truth to Justice White's observations, but what I can tell you is that in my 8.5 years of serving on the Georgia Supreme Court with Justice David Namias, I never for a moment, not once, not on any occasion, not in any respect, had any cause to doubt and question what he was doing here. Now, Justice Namias is probably as well credentialed as anyone who's ever served on this court. I don't intend to recite all of his very impressive credentials. They're well known. You can read about them, and in any event, it would substantially exceed my allotted time were I to try to recite them all. But I suppose I should mention a few. Justice Namias was born and raised here in Metro Atlanta, attended Briarcliff High School, where he was the star student, not just of Briarcliff High and not just of DeKalb County, but the star student of the state of Georgia. Justice Namias went from there to Duke University, where he graduated second in his class. He attended the law school at Harvard, where he served on the Harvard Law Review and graduated with honors. He then went on to clerk for Judge Lawrence Silberman on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. Then he clerked for Justice Antonin Scalia on the United States Supreme Court. He practiced for a brief time in private practice in Washington, D.C. He then came back to Atlanta and joined the U.S. Attorney's Office as an assistant U.S. attorney, where he worked on everything from terrorism to fraud to public corruption. He then, shortly after September 11th, went to Washington, D.C. to Main Justice, to the Department of Justice, where he ultimately served as Deputy Assistant Attorney General in the Criminal Division. In 2004, I believe, he returned to Atlanta as the United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. He then was appointed by Governor Perdue to this court in 2009 and has served as the presiding justice for the last 3 years. Now, you might surmise from his very impressive credentials that Justice Namias is a very impressive intellect. And I can confirm that that's true. In the course of my career, I have been blessed to work with a lot of very smart lawyers. There is no doubt in my mind, however, that Justice Namias is among at least the 3 most brilliant legal minds, maybe the most brilliant, but at least among the 3 most brilliant legal minds with whom I've ever worked. Now, by the way, no, I'm not going to name the other 2. So each of you can continue to think it's you. Now, strong credentials, the richness of the experience that they represent, and a sharp mind are all very important for a good appellate judge. But more important is character. And I want to talk briefly on some aspects of Justice Namias's character that I had occasion to observe in our 8.5 years of serving together that make him, I think, especially well-suited for the judicial role and especially well-suited for the office that he is about to assume. First of all, he has an incredibly strong work ethic. I think there is a public misperception when you think of the work ethic of judges to think back to the movie Caddyshack and Judge Smales and think that judges spend most of their time at the yacht club or at the country club or on the golf course. And maybe that is true for some judge somewhere in America. It is not true of most of the judges I know in Georgia. It is not true for my friends on the Court of Appeals, and it is not true for my friends on the Supreme Court of Georgia. It is an incredibly busy court. By some measures, and according to some studies, it is the busiest state court of last resort anywhere in the country. All the judges on the court work extremely hard, but I don't know that anybody works harder than Justice David Namias. To be honest, judges don't have to keep timesheets, and Chief Justice Melton, I regret to inform you that lawyers who used to be justices do. But justices don't keep timesheets, but if they did, I would expect that if we looked at them, that we would find nobody was putting in more hours as a Georgia judge than David Namias. In connection with that, collegiality also has some relationship with work ethic. Justice Namias can be a demanding colleague. He demands a lot of himself, and he demands a lot of those with whom he serves. But he is also a very generous and a very considerate colleague. He is a pleasure to work with. I will tell you, he told me about his practice when I first joined the court. His practice is that no matter what he's working on, when something comes in from one of his colleagues that is assigned to one of his colleagues, he lays aside what he's working on of his, and he turns to their work, because he doesn't want to be the reason that he's holding somebody else up. I've got to tell you, for an incredibly busy court, that sort of collegiality, that sort of professionalism, those sorts of relationships among the justices and the judges are critical to the proper functioning of a very busy court. And Justice David Namias sets the example. He also has been a leader on the court with respect to judicial integrity and ethics. Now, the justices with whom I have served, both former and current, all maintained a very high ethical standard, held themselves to that very high ethical standard. But Justice Namias has always provided leadership on that front. He led a revision and rewrite of the Code of Judicial Conduct a number of years ago. He has served as the liaison to the Judicial Qualifications Commission for almost as long as I was on the court, and I believe continues to serve in that perhaps until today. And he led he helped the JQC and the court through some very difficult times in the history of the Judicial Qualifications Commission. He also has a commitment to another value that I think is critical for judges generally, and that's the idea of judicial modesty. Courts occupy a very crucial space in our constitutional framework, but it is a limited space. And there is a tendency, I think, there's a temptation for Supreme Courts to think that they are last because they're always right. And there is a temptation to think that they can do whatever they want to do because, after all, supreme is in the name. But I'll never forget something that our friend, the late Justice Harris Hines, told me after I joined the court. He said, in my entire time on the court, he said, we always have focused on the very important question of should we do this or should we do that? He said, but since Dave showed up, we instead ask, can we do this or can we do that? Always before we get to the should. Justice David Namias also has an incredibly strong commitment to the truth and to getting to the right answer in the law. I don't know that I have ever seen anyone with as strong of a commitment to that. I thought about comparing it to the idea of, I thought about saying it's good enough for government work is something you will never hear from Justice Namias until I actually looked into the origins of that phrase. Apparently, it meant completely the opposite of what it's understood today to mean when it first came into usage back during World War II. And there were incredibly high and rigorous standards for government contractors to meet when they were producing war material. And so when people said it's good enough for government work, that was a real compliment about the nature of the work. And so used in the archaic sense, I guess, everything Justice Namias does is good enough for government work. Now, Elizabeth Fite commented on Justice Namias' reputation of being a little tough sometimes in oral argument. He can be a tough questioner of advocates who appear in front of the court. Make no mistake, I watched this for 8.5 years. I am certain he does not do that for sport. He does not do that for entertainment. He does that because he cares so deeply about getting to the right answer. And like an awful lot of trial lawyers, he tends to think that a thorough and sifting cross-examination is sometimes the best way to the truth. I am convinced that is the reason. He also does something else very important that's connected with getting to the right answer. Whenever we went into a case, Justice Namias, like most of my other colleagues, would have some preliminary views. He tended to have very well thought out and very well developed views, even when we went into the case, because he really studied it in advance. And that sometimes could make him hard to budge if you disagreed with him. But he is so committed to always getting to the right answer, he would always listen. He always had an open mind, and I can't tell you how many times he more often brought me around, but occasionally I would bring him around. It was a high burden. You had to convince him you were right and he was wrong, but he was always willing to listen. And that always struck me as something that every judge should aspire to. Now, before I stand down and he comes up with the Chief Justice for the administration of the oath, I think it is fitting to acknowledge some individuals who have played a substantial role in shaping the kind of man and the kind of judge that David Namias is. One of those is not here with us today, and that's the late Kathy O'Neill. She was so proud of her family, she was so proud of Dave, and we know she would be so proud today. I do want to acknowledge some people who are in attendance. Dave's sister Cindy, his brother Eddie, their families, Dave's mom Bee, his dad Andy, his stepmother Sousa, Linda Willis, her daughter Kendall. Linda, I have to tell you, you have brought, I can tell when I look at my friend that you have brought such joy into his life in the last couple of years, and I will be proud to see you standing by his side when he takes the oath of office. And finally, Stephen and Michael, Dave's sons. I know that that your dad has been a tremendous influence on your lives, but I want you to know what a tremendous influence you've been on his. Because I have to tell you, he and I were often collaborators and allies on different projects we worked on at the court, and we saw a lot of victories. We had a lot of successes, and we would sometimes revel in those professional successes, and I would see him get excited about a victory we had had, but I have never seen him as excited or as proud as when he talks about his boys. So with that, I will yield the floor, Mr. Chief Justice, for the administration of the oath.
Okay, Linda, you up for this? All right. Presiding Justice Namias, are you ready to take the oath?
I am, sir.
Raise your right hand. I, David E. Namias,
I, David E. Namias,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will truly
that I will truly
perform all the duties
perform all the duties
incumbent upon me
incumbent upon me
as Chief Justice
as Chief Justice
of the Supreme Court of Georgia,
of the Supreme Court of Georgia,
to the best of all my abilities,
to the best of all my abilities,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you Chief Justice David Namias.
Oh, here we go.
These are important. I don't think I could ad-lib this. Well, thank you all for being here. Today is largely for me a day to say thanks. I want to start by thanking Bishop Wright for his words of inspiration and blessing, and Elizabeth Fite for her kind words. I look forward to working with Elizabeth and maintaining the strong and vitally important relationship that the Supreme Court of Georgia has with the lawyers of Georgia and the State Bar. And I really want to thank former Justice Keith Blackwell for his kind words of introduction. For a decade, Justice Blackwell served our state with brilliance, diligence, and integrity as a judge on the Court of Appeals and as a justice of the Supreme Court. Because he left our court last year in the midst of the pandemic, he didn't receive any of the public send-offs we usually give to departing justices. So I'd ask you all now to please join me in standing to express our appreciation. My next thanks go to Chief Justice Milton for presiding over this ceremony, as he's presided so well over our court and over the entire judicial branch during a time of great challenges. This is his last public appearance as a member of our court, so please join me in thanking him one more time for 30 years of service to our state and 16 years of service as a justice. I also want to thank each and every one of the other justices with whom I've had the privilege of serving, currently and in the past. You are my friends and my colleagues, and I've cherished the collegiality that you've always demonstrated as we work together toward our common goal of deciding every case in accordance with the law, and in striving to ensure that the justice system in this state operates fairly, effectively, and efficiently. And congratulations to our new presiding justice, Michael Boggs, who I look forward to working with even more closely as we begin our new leadership roles together. Our work is supported by the court's entire staff, a team of about 80 dedicated public servants. Most of them couldn't fit in this chamber with us today, but I hope they're watching as I express my appreciation and the appreciation of all the justices for their good and hard work that they do every single day. Anyone who has a staff knows how important they are to the work that gets done and how unrecognized their work usually goes. So I want to take this opportunity to express my heartfelt thanks to everyone who has worked in my office over the past 12 years. My law clerks, John Withers, Ed Smith, Chelsea Fistel, and Allison Murphy. My term clerks, Megan Bream, Devin Terrell, and Cassie Conley, and my judicial assistants, Betty Daniels, Emily Youngo, Rebecca Stills, and as of today, Marty Head. Y'all stand up for a minute so people can see you. It's your work that makes me look good, and I appreciate it. I'm so glad that former Governor Sonny Perdue is here with us, so I can again express my gratitude to him for appointing me as a justice and giving me this incredible opportunity to serve our state. At my initial swearing in, I promised him I would do my best to make him proud of my service, and I hope I've done that. I also want to recognize and thank former Governor Deal, Mrs. Deal, Governor Kemp's Executive Counsel David Dove, and the legislators and judges who are here or watching today, including my many friends from the Court of Appeals. We've worked together, as we have to provide our courts with resources and laws that we need to perform our work effectively for the citizens that every one of us serves. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Just a few more thanks, I promise, and these will be the hardest for me to get through with dry eyes. I have a lot of family members here and more watching. As anyone who's been around us knows, we can be kind of a raucous group, but they're my foundation, my best cheerleaders, and also my best critics. I'm particularly grateful to have with me here today my father, Andy, who's 90 years old, and my mother, Bea, who turned 89 yesterday. Happy birthday, Mom. My dad came to this country from Egypt, and my mother came here from Germany when they were teenagers. They both became doctors and ultimately settled in Atlanta, where I was born. Sometimes with the words, but mainly just with actions and attitudes. They taught me to appreciate the incredible opportunities that this state and this country have to offer. That those opportunities come through education and hard work, and that it's more important to serve others than to make the most money. And the places they came from, colonial Egypt and Nazi Germany, made me want to understand and later to uphold the rule of law, that incredible concept at the very heart of our nation, that the laws have to apply to everyone equally for there to be justice. I'll get through it. But I'm most appreciative for my boys, Stephen and Michael. Michael's the big one and Stephen's the supersized one. Michael had just turned 4 and Stephen wasn't yet 6 when I became a justice. Since then, we've been through a lot together, including the loss of their mother, my beloved wife, Kathy O'Neill, to cancer 4 years ago. They've sacrificed a lot so that I could serve. And during my time away from home and endless, and I mean endless hours of reading on nights and weekends. But we've also had a lot of good times together, and they've grown up to be strong and smart and kind young men. So being Chief Justice is a pretty cool title, but my most important title will always be Father. And as some of you know, it's been a big week for Stephen too. Last Saturday, he accepted an offer to attend Duke University on a full football scholarship. I'm also very thankful that a new love has entered my life, Linda Willis, and her wonderful family. Linda's become my rock and my greatest supporter, and I'm glad she could be here to share this day with me. That's a whole lot of thanks, but I also want to thank all my other friends who are here with me today or watching. Every one of you has shaped my path and my family's path in some way, and so you've contributed to me being on this podium today, and I thank you. I want to end with just a few words about where Georgia's courts stand today. The Supreme Court and the entire judicial system in this state have survived the COVID pandemic with collaboration, creativity, and a lot of hard work. Judges, court staff, and lawyers at every level of our system have quickly adopted new technology and new practices, many of which should be continued and become the new normal as the pandemic fades. But our courts have a problem that most other organizations don't have. Delta doesn't need to reschedule the thousands of flights it canceled last year, and the Braves aren't going to replay all the games that they canceled and didn't play last year. But Georgia's trial courts have thousands, tens of thousands, of pending criminal and civil cases that were put on hold because in-person court proceedings, especially jury trials, were not safe. Those courts now have to work through those backlogs even as new cases pour in. That's going to take resources and perseverance and time, 2 to 3 years in some places. And when those cases get resolved in the trial courts, the appeals will start. And the Court of Appeals and our court will start working on those and still dealing with the pandemic's effects on our court system for many years to come. As much of the rest of our lives in this state returns to normal, our judicial system will need resources and support and patience from the General Assembly, the governor, and the public for years to come. But we're a great bargain. The entire state judicial system costs about a penny for every dollar the state spends. And for that, we get something truly precious. We get the rule of law enforced by independent and impartial judges. I'm proud to serve as a judge in this state, and I'm so honored to have the opportunity to lead our Supreme Court and our judicial branch. I thank you all again for being here today, and may God continue to bless all of you, our state, and our country.
Thank you, Chief Justice David Namias. Thank you for those comments. Thank you for those words of reflection. By way of closing, I do want to make sure that you're not saying it's bad to make money, are you? Today is a great day. It's great opportunities like this that give us cause to reflect and see how far our judiciary has come, how strong we are, and how fortunate we are to have the leadership of these great men and women, led by Presiding Justice Michael Boggs and Chief Justice David Namias. Congratulations. So excited for the years and the path that lies ahead. On behalf of Chief Justice David Namias and Presiding Justice Boggs, I do want to guide you and invite you to a reception that will take place down the street in the Nathan Deal Judicial Center. It's the building facing us squarely. The entrance is on the Memorial Drive entrance. We'll have refreshments on the second floor. We have volunteer staff people who will be able to give you a tour of the building, answer any questions. You can walk around, we'll show you around. And so we'd be glad to do that. I will ask, though, that several people stick behind for photos. The family members of Chief Justice Namias and Presiding Justice Boggs, would you please stay behind? Our governors, would you please? And Mr. Ray, thank you for being here. If you have time, we would love it if you could stick around. And I do see B.J. Pack, our former U.S. Attorney for the Northern District here. Good to see you, sir. I think that's all that I need to do to direct us for what lies ahead. I will add this very important note on behalf of the entire family and for all litigants across the state, this one word of advice for you as you move forward into the Supreme Court era under this new leadership. And that is to say that it is pronounced Namias. That concludes our festivities. Our court is adjourned.
Yes.